one holding either arm, three behind, and something like a dozen more surrounding, with people, 10 yards in front, clearing a path clearly, and there will be security in all of this, getting close to the person who is accused, being filmed there by what look like drug enforcement agents. You can see two individuals with DEA on their backs filming, it looks to me, with iPhones. So presumably in due course we get the pictures of that as he or she disappear behind the building. We're getting pictures again of them heading towards a building. That's what it looks like. Slowly, deliberately. Their hands look from here as if they are handcuffed. The way his legs are moving, it would appear to be that his or her legs, are chained also. Quite tall, taller than the agents by his side, and he's being taken in there to a building at Stewart International Airport. As I say, the plan from here on in is to transport him, Nicolas Maduro, president of Venezuela. The plan is to take him to the Metropolitan Detention Center. That looks to me like a hangar he's been taken into. And you can tell that security agents are relatively relaxed now that they have him inside, standing, watching him. There's armed members of the military, clearly drug enforcement agents.
4 hours with a plane already in the air while the plan was still being finalized. And before dawn, the team jumped from high altitude, landed outside the city, and immediately moved on foot, switching vehicles twice to avoid attention while slipping through checkpoints, using timing and false clearances rather than force. They entered the capital, accessed the building through a service corridor that had been mapped months earlier, bypassed security systems that were already looping, and reached the residence without triggering a single alarm, moving room to room with precision and patience instead of speed. The president was located exactly where intelligence predicted he would be, and the exit was already staged before the contact was even made. So within minutes, the team retraced a different route, left the city unnoticed, and lifted off from a secondary airstrip while the rest of the country went on as usual. By the time officials realized something was wrong, the aircraft was already over open water, and the story spread faster than the explanation ever could. The operation was over, but what it would trigger was only just starting. Follow for more.
The States launched a massive air attack against Venezuela, striking several military bases within the capital and other cities. A special forces Delta team went inside the capital cities Caracas and extracted Nicolas Maduro from his residency and flew him out of the country. The shocking aspect of this operation is that there was virtually no military resistance to this attack. And the rumors inside Venezuelan society is that the Venezuelan military and other close allies of Nicolas Maduro betrayed him and turned him in. An important context to understand this operation is the fact that Venezuela held elections in 2024 with the opposition candidate Edmundo González, who had replaced Maria Corina Machado, the recent Nobel Prize winner, because she was barred from running for president by the government of Nicolas Maduro, had won those elections. It is estimated that the opposition candidate won by 60+% of the votes, but the government of Nicolas Maduro claimed victory and stayed in power. It is also important to mention that Nicolas Maduro is very unpopular in Venezuelan society because of the corruption and because of the mishandling of the Venezuelan economy. But what happens next? Well, according to Donald Trump, the United States will be running Venezuela and made explicit remark about the Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, stating that she was not popular enough to take power and that they will directly deal with Maduro's vice president, Delcy Rodriguez.
You said earlier today that you weren't going to back Machado to come back and be the opposition leader in your Fox and Friends interview. And then you also mentioned the vice president of Venezuela. Are you going to work with the vice president of Venezuela, or how do you foresee the relationship going?
I understand she was just sworn in, but she was, as you know, picked by Maduro. So Marco's working on that directly. Just had a conversation with her. and she's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Very simple.
These statements by Donald Trump have created a confusing situation for the Venezuelan opposition that was pushing for this regime change. And it looks like now Trump is putting them on the side and attempting to govern Venezuela directly. Now, there is a contradiction in statements because according to Trump, Maduro's vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, will be the person leading the transition to a new government. But Vice President of Venezuela declared on a Venezuelan TV media that the legitimate president of Venezuela is still Nicolás Maduro, contradicting what the United States has said.
Exigimos la inmediata liberación del presidente Nicolás Maduro y de su esposa Cilia Flores. Único presidente de Venezuela, el presidente Nicolás Maduro. Por herencia, tenemos el deber sagrado de resguardar como es nuestra independencia nacional, como es nuestra soberanía, nuestra integridad territorial que ha sido salvajemente atacado en la madrugada del día de hoy. Todo dentro de la Constitución. Lo aprendimos del comandante Chávez frente a las vicisitudes, frente a los golpes de Estado, frente a los sabotajes petroleros. Nosotros estamos listos para defender a Venezuela. Nosotros estamos listos para defender nuestros recursos naturales que deben ser para el desarrollo nacional. Los extremistas que han promovido esta agresión armada contra nuestro país, la historia y la justicia se los hará pagar. Si hay algo que el pueblo venezolano y que este país tiene muy claro, es que jamás volveremos a ser esclavos, es que jamás volveremos a ser colonia.
Now, what do I think of this? Well, you can have two thoughts on your head at the same time. Yes, Maduro was really unpopular and I'm glad to see him gone. But I also think an American intervention of this kind is a flagrant violation of international law and I'm against it. I am consistent with my views about American military interventions. For now, we should pray Venezuela finds a peaceful exit to this political crisis and that the Venezuelan people ultimately are the ones that control the political destiny of our nation.
Allow me to break down the pending indictment against Nicolás Maduro and describe what's next for him in the court of law. Now, you may have heard that Nicolás Maduro, who has led Venezuela since 2013, was captured along with his wife by the United States and is being taken to New York to face federal gun and drug charges. Under international law, forcible capture inside of another country is generally unlawful because it violates that nation's sovereignty. But the US courts follow the Kerr-Frisbee doctrine, which says that if somebody is forcibly brought into the United States, they can still be tried by our courts, even if their capture violates another country's laws. Separate from the legality or not of the capture of Maduro, let's talk about the federal indictment. Okay, so the superseding indictment, in this case, 11 CR 205 in the Southern District of New York before Judge Alvin Hellerstein was just unsealed. It alleges a number of federal crimes, including a narco-terrorism conspiracy that began sometime around 1999 and continued at least until 2020. If you're curious about the statute of limitations or the speedy trial clause, you have to understand is that under federal law, terrorism and narco-terrorism statutes usually have an expanded or eliminated statute of limitations. And then you also have fugitive tolling under 18 United States Code Section 3290. If the delay is due to the defendant's unavailability, then it's not blamed on the government. If you're wondering why the case can be brought in the Southern District of New York, the indictment basically alleges long-running criminal conduct that culminates in harm to the U.S. because it brings drugs into the U.S. and it alleges harm to U.S. persons. Maduro also has 5 co-defendants in this indictment, 2 of whom have entered guilty pleas, and 1 of whom has been sentenced. You can certainly expect Maduro to allege sovereign immunity or head of state immunity, an argument that basically he has immunity from prosecution for acts taken in his official capacity. This argument was presented to the court by one of his co-defendants already, Cliver Cordones, who was a high-ranking military official, and the judge denied that motion. Cordones has since been sentenced to 260 months in prison, and his appeal is pending. Hugo Barrios, another co-defendant, he was the head of Venezuela's military intelligence agency, has also entered a plea, and his sentencing is set for February 23rd, 2026. Pam Bondi has indicated that the Department of Justice is likely to supersede again this indictment and bring Maduro's wife into it and possibly add new and different or expanded criminal charges. Of course, in addition to moving to dismiss the indictment based on immunity, we can expect evidentiary challenges and challenges over classified information and discovery. But in terms of what's next for Maduro and his wife, they will have an initial appearance in the Southern District of New York, where they will be asked if they have read and seen the indictment against them, and they'll enter a plea of not guilty. Of course, generally, if the feds want to get you, they can get you. But nothing is ever guaranteed.
Right now, you are seeing Venezuelans from around the world celebrating the capture of their dictator, Nicolas Maduro. Here you see them tearing down a banner with his face on it. Venezuelans in Miami celebrating this capture, and thousands upon thousands getting together over this historic moment in Venezuela. For Venezuelans, this is the most freedom they've had since Maduro came into power back in 2013. Local reporters say that a guy named Edgar says that his chest feels like it's about to explode with joy. While Venezuelans are celebrating, they're also FaceTiming family still in Venezuela, making sure they're okay, because there is still so much uncertainty about what happens next. After Nicolas Maduro's capture and all the celebrations, it's very clear that Venezuelans have wanted this for a very long time.
Yeah, come celebrate with us. We love everybody because you, America, has loved us so much. So much. Thank you, America.
One thing is for sure, Donald Trump is truly changing the world, and now Venezuelans have a brighter future that they can look forward to.
What I experienced in my own country, part of the reason why I ended up leaving, and what is true, what is happening that most people don't even know. This isn't about being pro-Trump or anti-Trump or Republican or Democrat. It's not about that. It's about the reality of what we've been dealing with under a dictatorship, a regime that has been a narco-terrorist dictatorship, essentially, that has done so many horrible things. And listen, if I'm going to be honest with you, if I were an American citizen not knowing anything about what's happening in Venezuela, I would understand their nervousness that people feel under what's going on with Trump. However, as a Venezuelan citizen who does know what's happening, I feel like, please come and help, because this is out of our hands. A lot of people have asked me, but why haven't the Venezuelan people protested? Why aren't they in the streets trying to overthrow the government? The reality is that we've spent the last 26 years protesting in the streets and voting and doing everything that is in our hands to overthrow these people and gain control of the country again. But just to give you one small example, last year after the elections, which the opposition won, and they had the ballots to prove that they won, in 24 hours, almost 3,000 people were put in prison, including people that defended those ballots and that made copies of those ballots to prove that they had won. These people, some of them, nobody knows even anything about where they are. Others are basically in torture centers in Venezuela, and they don't have rights to a lawyer or anybody. Like, they're just thrown in jail. Even posting like messages or sending each other messages through WhatsApp, through private messages on your phone, is enough to land you in prison right now. So voting or taking the streets is not as simple. We've done that thousands and thousands of times over almost 30 years. The only way to bring these people down and to recover democracy and to recover justice and prosperity and peace is to have somebody else end this war. The war already started years ago. What we need is external force to help us end it. Ultimately, I don't know where this is going to end. I have no clue what's going to happen in Venezuela right now and where Trump is going to take this. But of course, I'm in favor of something ending this situation, or somebody ending this situation, because the pain that it has caused is beyond what I could even describe here. So I will continue sharing what I've seen in my country and what's going on, because most of the media isn't sharing the whole truth.
Goes into Venezuela in the middle of the night. A couple of hours later, in New York, you have an organized march with thousands of people with banners, signs, flags, and the signs are all matching. They've all been printed. They were at the same print press. Who's working overtime? Who's setting this up? Are these guys paid? Like, there is no way that you can get all these people and have all these signs overnight. I'm sorry, and not even a couple of hours. These people were out in the morning. Trump was going to Venezuela at 2 or 3 in the morning. And these people were out like, what, 7, 8, 9? Organized? Bro, who's doing this? This is, I'm sorry, this is not organic. Not one freaking bit is this organic. And they were all over Times Square. Like, look at this. Look at these signs. Perfect. All matching. Listen, if they were handwritten, fine. But they're printed. And they have long banners as well. Look at this. This is great.
Cuba is ready to fall. You know? Yes. Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
Are you considering U.S. action in Cuba?
We're not. I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action. It looks like it's going down. It's going down for the count. You ever watch a fight?
Yeah.
They go down for the count. And Cuba looks like it's going down.
Many in South Africa have put their hope in BRICS as a source of protection. It is not, and never will be, just as the G7 and G20 are not military alliances. Indeed, in this new order it will be as likely that Russia, China, or another country could seek to overthrow a San government. Believing that Russia would not seek to set up a coup through its deniable groups like Wagner, as it has done elsewhere on the continent, once it decided it furthered its interests just because of past friendships is naivete, for instance. Now it faces, like every other small power, a world in which neither Washington, Moscow, nor Beijing feel themselves constrained in any way in the use of their power. I expect nuclear proliferation to skyrocket in the next decade, as will defense spending, as lesser powers including South Africa belatedly realize that they are no longer protected by the UN Charter. How this plays out will differ by region.
This is a message to South African government. You guys keep on putting yourself in America's business. What if they come and scoop Cyril up? How easily do you think can they scoop Cyril up here? We only have like 2-3 jets that's barely working. America sent helicopters to Venezuela. Do you guys have helicopter drivers here with that flamethrower stuff that they use on Maduro? Just because Maduro didn't want to give up his presidency and his own country asked America for help because he didn't want to step down, and the citizens was unhappy because they were treated unfairly.
I came in this country when I was 10 years old, and ever since I was born, every single person in power of the country has abused us and abused of their power.
So what if South Africa go there to Trumpy and say, Trumpy, we tired of Cyril and his corruption in the ANC and goodness, sort him out. That man don't even have to send like 8 helicopters like they sent here to Venezuela. They can literally just send a drone to come and get him, because how are we going to defend ourselves as South Africans? Who's going to defend us against the helicopters? Are you going to? So Cyril, stop getting involved, because you guys put out a statement. You're supposed to be the GNU, Government of National Unity, but you guys should put out statements against America. We don't want no beef with them. Why you put out this statement, but you can't back it up? No, man. They must come and get him then. No, I'm tired. We don't want to smoke with them. Did you see what? Do you know what they did? Just come and fetch Cyril, because Cyril don't want to listen. He must keep your mouth out of other countries. Worry about us here. They use a helicopter like Rainbow. Flamethrowers. Bah. What are we gonna do? We only have copper. We don't have helicopters.
About the United States bringing regime change to a country near you, aka Mzansi, incoming. After he's taken care of Maduro, oh, let me check, done. Venezuela, done. Nigeria, done. So after he's done there, take one guess of all the countries in the world. Which one is next on his list and why? And if you can't see that, then do some checking in yourself and how you are reading the situation. Go and look at my previous videos, and they're saying, oh, I like Trump and this and that, and Trump can go to hell and whatever. They can say whatever about me, inferring stuff that I never said, or about Donald Trump, But where do you think he's going after Venezuela and after Nigeria? Huh? Who do you think is next on his list? Where is there legislation passed already concerning a specific country that will give justification for a invasive action towards active and immediate regime change? Trump has to counter China's interest in South Africa, in Southern Africa. He has to counter that. It's no good China's already here. It's no good there's relations with Russia or whatever. He has to counter that geopolitically. He has to create a presence inside of South Africa in order to counter the presence of those nations. Besides, South Africa pissed off his friends Netanyahu and the State of Israel. They are pissed off about not South Africa as a whole. The ANC pissed them off, and Julius Malema pissed them off, and Cyril pissed him off for not wanting to do anything about Julius's loudmouth talking. So watch the space. I still stand with what I said. The year has ended. The ANC seems to be still in power, if you can call it that. I think that power is kind of doing so at the moment. That power is a little bit worried, that power. Because as would be I would be worried as well if I was Cyril's government. We're going to see some things flying around here soon. Not saying I want it. I'm not saying whatever. I'm just saying I think it'll be good for the country.
Hello to a Sudanese businessman is taken. February 10, 2020, this is where things get murky. Instead of a docket being opened, General Wally Rudd reportedly begins a clandestine investigation. March 2020, the suspects are tracked to Cape Town and then to Namibia. Pause, wait a minute. How do you track suspects across a national border without an Interpol red notice? How do you do it without a formal case? In South Africa, if your car is stolen, you need a case number for the insurance. If the president's millions are stolen, apparently, you just need a phone call to the general.
South Africa's ruling class, the ANC looters in suits, the EFF racist messiahs in red berets, and the MK consultants of decay have sung their last chorus of struggle songs. And now the spotlight shifts, not to applause, but to judgment. The USA is about to strike the local gangsters, local South African gangsters, not with bullets, with bans, not with boots, with bank freezes, and not with speeches, with isolation and punishments, so severe it silences even the most arrogant microphone. HR 2633, the guillotine in a business suit. The United States-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act is no empty threat. It is a surgical tool of economic execution, wrapped in legality, but soaked in finality. And it's already being sharpened by Washington's finest. Ramaphosa knows it. Mashatile feels it. Malema pretends to laugh through it. Shivambu, Google escapes roots. Imbalula, Fikile's memes have dried up. Beketeli is looking nervously at prison overalls. And the cadres at Luthuli House, once smug with loans from Iran and Russian vodka, are starting to realize no BRICS country will stop a dollar landslide. The US isn't planning to act, it's poised to act. And when Trump strikes, America will rip through ANC bank accounts, border entries, foreign assets, diplomatic protections, and every backdoor built by the ANC's corruption architects. The illusion is dead. The execution is personal. This isn't about policy, it's about punishment. The ANC has violated every principle the post-apartheid dream claimed to stand for, and now the world is turning on them, not because it suddenly grew a conscience, but because chaos is contagious. And no sane economy wants South Africa's virus in their bloodstream. For 31 years, these ANC men fed off slogans while draining the state. They preached unity while sharpening knives behind tribal lines. and they danced on the ruins of Rhodesia while mocking those who warned them, "You're next." Well, now is next. And what does the world say now? The United Nations? Still issuing statements no one reads. BRICS? Offering friendship bracelets and watching the US press detonate. What about China? Quietly backing away from a bad investment. They're hiding from the ANC. Too embarrassing. And Russia? Too busy choking in Ukraine to care. And what about Iran? Money to the ANC. They're beaten to a pulp and running scared. Nobody's coming to your rescue, ANC. No cavalry, no comrades, just silence. You're on your own. And the cold click of economic exile. And at last, the people know. The ones who really matter. The ordinary South Africans. The ones who've been betrayed daily by the ANC. They won't march in rage this time. They'll sip weak tea, eyes on the headlines, and say what they've been saying behind closed doors or at braais for years. Let the ANC burn. Let the ANC fail. Let the liars and gangsters drown in their own sewage. The people of this country have survived poverty, power cuts, empty taps, genocide incitement. They're not afraid of the collapse. They've lived in it for decades. And when the final stage of this reckoning rolls out, South Africans are not going to flinch, because the fire is not theirs. It belongs to those who lit the fuse and called it freedom. They lied. The BEE, Black Enrichment Elite of the ANC. And yes, the names are going to be named. This isn't theoretical. The Magnitsky list of ready-made for the likes of Cyril Ramaphosa, Paul Mashatile, Julius Malema, Floyd Shivambu, Fikile Mbalula, Ace Magashule, the nasty Becky Tseli, the anti-Semitic Naledi Pandor. All of you are going down. And every dirty little consigliere who signed the checks, made the deals, and sold the soul of our nation for another imported SUV. They're not going to hide behind struggle credentials. They're not going to cite apartheid, and they will not escape in disguise. Because the world is not confused anymore. The world sees the ANC for what it is. Not a liberation movement, not a government, but a criminal syndicate. And when the ANC fail, and when they fall, it won't be war, it's going to be sterilization. The luxury accounts, frozen. Your diplomatic visas, revoked. Your overseas property portfolios, seized. Your children in London and New York, disgraced. Your Swiss accounts, locked tighter than Fort Knox. You're going to return humbled and humiliated to the ruins that you've built in this country. And for once, you're going to be forced to live in the country you created, the mess you created. And then what? When the ash settles and the last speechwriter retires, our land's still going to be here. Our people are still going to be here. And from the ANC scorched earth, something better will rise. Not perfect, not pain-free, but clean. No more rainbow illusions, no more worshipping party over principle, Cyril. No more ties to revolutionaries who forgot how to build. This isn't collapse. This is a correction. No anthem, no foreign fund, no staged march will undo what's coming. The ANC is not being defeated. It is expiring from within. And the world isn't intervening to stop it. They're just here to bury the corpse. So share this message with those who still believe the storm is a drizzle, because soon they're going to see this wasn't thunder. It was the fall of false gods who forgot they were mortal.
Ladies and gentlemen, Archivist here. We need to talk about the silence. Have you noticed it? 6 months ago, the entire internet was screaming about the BRICS currency. Every financial channel, every news outlet, every Twitter guru was predicting that China and Russia were about to unveil a new gold-backed banknote that would replace the dollar overnight. People were waiting for a photo op. They were waiting to see Putin hold up a shiny new bill. They were waiting to see a BRICS coin that they could put in their pockets. And then, nothing happened. The summit came and went. There was no banknote. There was no coin. And the mainstream media laughed. They told you, see, it was all a fantasy. It was, the BRICS can't even agree on a lunch menu, let alone a currency. The dollar is safe. Go back to sleep. But I am here to tell you that this was the greatest misdirection in modern financial history. While you were looking for a currency you could spend at the grocery store, the East was building a currency designed to destroy the debt market. While the media was mocking the lack of a banknote, the technocrats in Moscow and Beijing were finalizing the code for a settlement token. They didn't build a currency for people, they built a currency for states. It is called the unit. And hidden deep in the technical white paper, a document that almost no one in the West has bothered to read, is a single rule that is about to break the gold market forever. It isn't a rule about spending gold. It is a rule about locking it. It is a mechanism that turns the entire BRICS trade bloc into a vacuum cleaner for physical metal. And today, we are going to look at the 40% lock. We are going to open the hood of this new machine and show you why the silence from the East isn't a sign of failure. It is the silence of a weapon being loaded. To understand the unit, you have to unlearn everything you know about money. In the West, we think of money as something you hold. You have dollars in your wallet. You have euros in your bank account. But the unit does not exist in the physical world. You will never hold one. You will never buy a coffee with one. The unit is what we call a unit of account. It is a ghost standard. Think of it like the SDR, special drawing rights, used by the IMF, but with teeth. It sits on a digital ledger between central banks. Here's how it works. Let's say Brazil wants to sell soybeans to China. Currently, they usually have to convert real to dollars, and then dollars to yuan. The US dollar sits in the middle of every trade, taking a fee and, more importantly, holding the power to sanction the trade. The unit removes the middleman. But it doesn't just replace the dollar with the yuan, because Brazil doesn't want to hold billions of yuan, which China can devalue, and China doesn't want to hold billions of real. They don't trust each other, so they need a neutral arbiter. They need a referee that cannot be printed, cannot be sanctioned, and cannot be devalued. This is where Sergei Glaziev, the architect of the system, played his ace card. He didn't just propose a digital token, he proposed a token with a hard anchor. I have the technical specifications right here. According to the proposal, the value of the unit is not arbitrary. It is mathematically defined by a basket. The basket is composed of two parts. 60% is a weighted average of the BRICS local currencies, the real, the ruble, the rupee, the yuan, the rand. This gives the token liquidity. It ties it to the local economies, but the other 40% is physical gold. Do not gloss over that number. In the modern banking world, a 40% gold backing is unheard of. The US dollar has 0% backing. The euro has 0% backing. Even under the classic gold standard of the 19th century, banks often ran on fractional reserves of 10% or 20%. But the unit requires 40%. Why so high? Because, as I said, these nations do not trust each other. India does not trust China. Russia does not trust Brazil. The only thing they all trust, the only thing that has no counterparty risk, is gold. So, to make the system work, to make India accept this digital token in exchange for its valuable exports, the token must be good as gold. Now here is the mechanism that the bullion banks in London are terrified of. We call it the lock. Under this proposed system, member nations cannot simply print units to buy things. If China wants to mint 1 billion units to facilitate trade, they must deposit the collateral into the central clearing facility. They must deposit the local currency portion, and they must deposit the gold. This gold is not for trading. It is not for leasing. It is not for hedging. It is collateral. It goes into the vault, and it stays there. It is effectively removed from the global circulating supply. It is locked to back the ledger. Think of it like a staking mechanism in crypto, but with physical bars. As the trade volume between BRICS nations grows, as more oil, more wheat, and more microchips are traded in units, the demand for units grows. And because the units are mathematically tied to gold, the demand for physical gold grows in a direct, linear relationship. It creates a permanent, non-sellable bid. Every time a new trade agreement is signed in units, a specific tonnage of gold must be bought and locked away to legitimize the settlement. This changes the dynamics of the gold market completely. For the last 50 years, gold has been a speculative asset. It goes up when people are scared, it goes down when people are greedy. Supply flows in and out of ETFs. It flows back and forth between London and New York. But the unit turns gold into infrastructure. It turns gold into the electricity that runs the trade network. If you don't have the gold, you can't mint the units. If you can't mint the units, you can't buy the oil. Therefore, gold darstings oil. But this leads us to the terrifying question. The question that keeps the JP Morgan desk awake at night. We know the mechanism, 40% backing. But what does that mean in tons? If the BRICS nations move just 50% of their trade onto this system, how much gold does that actually require? I did the math. I ran the numbers based on the 2025 trade volumes, And when I saw the result, I realized why the price of gold is refusing to drop. The amount of gold required to fund the unit isn't just a lot. It is more gold than is currently sitting in the registered vaults of the COMEX. I am going to show you the calculation. I'm going to show you exactly how many tons are about to be sucked out of the West. And I am going to show you why the supply shock of 2026 is mathematically guaranteed. I told you that the 40% lock creates a vacuum cleaner for physical gold, but vacuum cleaner is a metaphor. Metaphors don't move markets. Tonnage moves markets. So let's put the metaphor away and take out the calculator. We are going to estimate exactly how much gold this new system requires to function. To do this, we look at the intra-BRICS trade volume. According to the 2025 customs data, trade between China, Russia, India, Brazil, and the new members, Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia, is exploding. A conservative estimate puts the annualized trade volume within the bloc at roughly $500 billion now. Let's assume a slow rollout. Let's assume that in year one, only 50% of this trade moves away from the dollar and onto the unit settlement rail. That gives us a transaction demand of $250 billion. Now, apply the Glaziev rule. To mint $250 billion worth of units to facilitate that trade, the member central banks must lock up 40% of that value in physical gold. What is 40% of $250 billion? It is $100 billion. And now, let's convert that fiat number into metal. At a gold price of roughly $2,600 per ounce, $100 billion buys you approximately 38 million ounces of gold. Let's convert that to tons, because central banks speak in tons. 38 million ounces divided by 32,150 ounces per ton. The result is 1,181 metric tons. I want you to sit with that number for a second. 1,181 tons. Is that a lot? Let's put it in context. The total annual global mining production, every mine in South Africa, Australia, Peru, and Russia combined, is only about 3,000 tons. This one mechanism, handling just half of the BRICS trade, would instantly swallow nearly 40% of the entire planet's annual supply. But here is the comparison that should scare you. Go to the CME Group website right now. Look at the registered category in the COMEX gold vaults, the gold that is actually available for delivery. It usually hovers around 10 to 15 million ounces. Do you see the problem? The unit needs 38 million ounces. The COMEX only has 15 million. The demand from this single trade settlement token is nearly 3x the entire available inventory of the New York futures market. This isn't a squeeze. This is an extinction event for the paper market. Where are they going to get the gold? They are going to drain London. They are going to drain Switzerland. And when that physical float disappears, the price discovery mechanism breaks. The paper price says one thing, but the physical price goes to the moon because the unit bid is relentless. But the math is only half the story. The structure of the unit does something even more dangerous to the American hegemony. It creates what we call the Glaziev loop. For 50 years, the world has run on the petrodollar. You sell oil, you get dollars, you recycle dollars into U.S. treasuries. The U.S. government gets to borrow for free. That cycle is now broken. With the unit, we enter a new cycle, the petrogold standard. Here's the loop. 1. Russia sells oil to China. 2. China pays in units. 3. The unit is anchored to gold. Therefore, Russia is effectively selling oil for gold. This bypasses the US dollar completely, but it goes a step further. It creates an arbitrage mechanism that forces the gold price up. Think about it. If the price of oil goes up, the BRICS nations need to mint more units to pay for it. To mint more units, they need to buy more gold. So, higher oil prices automatically trigger higher gold buying. The two most strategic commodities on Earth become mathematically linked. This is the nightmare scenario for the Federal Reserve. They can print dollars to suppress yields. They can print dollars to bail out banks. But they cannot print gold to settle BRICS trade. Every barrel of oil moved on this new rail is a nail in the coffin of the U.S. Treasury market. This triggers a phenomenon economists call Gresham's Law. Bad money drives out good. But in this case, it's the opposite dynamic in the vaults. Good money goes into hiding. The unit acts as a one-way valve. Gold flows into the BRICS central banks to back the unit.
Our world is changing. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your comment. What do you think about the new Freedom for All? Have a super great one till we meet again. Happy New Year. Let 2026 be the year we will never forget.